Hey look, I now have a bench troll. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. I'm having a lot of fun down here, enjoying my time with the bench. Now, I've done quite a bit of work on this bench thus far, from all the rough lumber and lamination and vices, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. If you'd like to see the progress thus far, I'll leave a link to it in the cards and down below. But today I want to work on building this shelf. This is a shelf so I can put other things down here and add some more weight to the bench, make it so it has less tendency to move around or vibrate, and it just makes it finished. It looks a little bit better than just having a blank open area. So let's jump into it and see how we made it. As with all of my favorite projects, we are starting with white oak. I love white oak. It is a painful wood to work with. It's kind of crunky and grain goes every direction, but the finished product is so worth it. I'm going to start by marking out the sort of length it needs to be. I'm going to make them about a ½ inch longer than they actually need to be. I'm not being very accurate here, just kind of rough cutting them to a general length. And that's where this saw is fantastic. This buck saw just rips through wood very quickly and is rather fun for this first step of cutting things to length. Once I have them all cut down, I can then start by flattening them out. I'm going to flatten out one side on each of these pieces. These will end up being the planks, but I need to resaw them in half. So I need a good flat surface that I can mark off of. So after flattening out one side, I can continue on. I do have a whole video on dimensioning lumber and how I go about flattening it. It's a fairly simple process once you understand it. The pair of winding sticks to give you the information you need. It goes really quickly. Once I have one side flat as a reference, I can use a marking gauge to put a mark down the middle of the board, or close to the middle of the board, as the other side isn't quite perfect yet. I'm waiting on doing the other side until I have them ripped because I need to flatten out and clean up where the saw marks are as well, and so it's just quicker to do them all at once. Once I have that line down the board, then I can bring in my favorite saw. This is a traditional Roubo style frame saw. I made it quite a while ago. I've actually made several of these, and I have a couple of videos up on making them if you want to see those as well. But they are a ton of fun. They march through the board rather quickly. It ends up taking me about 10-15 minutes per board, and these are about 18 inches long. One of them is up to 8 inches wide. So it's surprisingly quick how well they go through, especially with this white oak. And when it finally pops through, it's a lot of fun. Now I need to clean up these boards and bring them down to final thickness, and I'm just going to use the plain cross grain to get it down close to what it needs to be, and then I'll come in with the grain and smooth it out. These will end up being a little over 1/4 inch thick, and I'm not being very picky about their thickness. I'm just bringing them all down to a similar thickness, so some of them vary a little bit in how thick they are, or from one end to the other. Oh well. Now I need to joint them because they will all be side by side so that they have nice flat jointed edges, so there are less cracks or bows or bends that cause issue when they're put in. And then cut them all to the right length. So I set them all up and then found out what the measurement is that they all need to total up to, and then cut off the last board so that they will all fit underneath and be the correct length total. Last thing I need to do with these is cut them to length, and I just use a straight edge to mark down, and then I will cut them on my bench hook. Fairly simple thing to do once you set it up, especially once you get to know how to use the saw. It actually goes really quickly to march right through these boards. Then I can lay them out on the bottom and find out exactly how long each one of these needs to be. My stretchers actually change in the width here, an 1/8 inch from one end to the other. So I individually lay out each board and mark them off, and then cut them to their actual length. For the final board on either end, I actually need to notch out around the leg, so I put it in there and then make both the depth and width mark of this notch. Then I can put it into the vise and very quickly chop out that notch so that it will fit around the leg. And the last one of these boards on either end will get this notch on either end of its own board. Fairly straightforward, but then we can just chamfer them and make sure they all fit together and fit into place and move on. A nice hard chamfer is just kind of a cool thing, especially with the joints in between these. That chamfered edge butted up against each other looks kind of cool. Next, we need to make the stretchers underneath that these will all sit on. They're out of oak stock. All of mine are different widths and different thicknesses. They're all about 1 inch by 1 inch, though some of them are as thin as 3/4 and as thick as 1 1/4 inch. I really don't care about that. They'll be underneath this, and all they're doing is supporting a little bit of weight from the boards. So I can use this planing stop that I made recently. I really enjoy this thing. It makes it very easy because I can just pick it up at any time and check it with a square, put it back down, or clean the surface underneath, and it's much easier than the end vise because you don't have to rotate and reach down at the end every time to open up the vise. You can just plane away as long as you get used to actually working on it. And then if you notice you're shooting the wrong direction of the grain, you can flip it around. On each of these, I need to flatten off one end or square off one end and make sure that it will fit nicely underneath. Once I get the one end squared off, then I can put it underneath and actually put it in place and check it, make sure that it will fit perfectly. Mark it where it needs to be and then cut it to length. Once they're cut to length, I can put them in place, then drill out for the screws and countersink them in. I'm using some brass flathead screws that work fairly well. I kind of like them. They just kind of finish it off nicely. 4 on either side and then 2 on either end hold this in place. Now I can just test fit all the boards and make sure they fit. I kind of like it. Very, very simple how they just pop in place. Last thing I need to do is put on paste wax and boiled linseed oil. This is my favorite finish and one I have quite a few videos on. I just keep putting on the boiled linseed oil until it soaks in completely, and I have standing oil on top that doesn't want to completely soak in. Then I wipe off that oil and immediately put on the paste wax. I have a whole video on how I apply boiled linseed oil and paste wax. A very simple finish, not terribly durable, but looks absolutely gorgeous. Once I put it on the stiles or the rails, I can then put in the planks, and voila, I have a shelf underneath my bench. And I'm really in love with this. I like how it came out. I like the colors. I like the look of it. And I think it fits the bench rather nicely. So there you have it. I am in love with this. I really like how this came out with all the different colors and textures, and it's not quite flat, it's not quite even, and there's just some naturality to it, and I kind of like that. And any one of these, anytime I can pop it up, remove it. If I need to get underneath or need to do anything else, it goes in there. I know a lot of people are saying, wow, that's really thin. I mean, it's slightly over 1/4 inch. You know, really, that's going to hold a lot of weight. I could stand on those and not have that much deflection. So it's really not that much of a problem. And I'm not going to be putting that much weight on any one individual piece. They're going to be spanning all the way across this. And I'm going to be putting down several planks that will be covering this and filling this whole space up basically with more weight. Another thing people are going to ask is, why didn't you do shiplap or tongue and groove or something of that nature? And really, I have no need to. Yes, it would add a little bit more strength of one piece overlapping the other, but not that much more. So there wasn't any reason to spend the time on it. I might do something like that in the future if you want to see how, but I just didn't want to or need to do it on this one. So why spend the time for it? So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit like and go ahead and smash that subscribe button. I also want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. I know I say this a lot, but you guys really are the reason why this channel is going. You are what are bringing in the money to buy the things needed to accomplish this task. So thank you for that. If you'd like to find out more about that, you can do so right down there. If you want to subscribe or see some behind the scenes stuff, you can see that over here. And until next time, have a wonderful day.